You can now get a 30-day trial to experience The Athletic for free. Visit the link in the description below to try it now.
Hello, welcome back to Tifo IRL. I am JJ Bull. Here is a tactics board full of players. And today we're going to talk about the Premier League XG table. And to do that, we're going to talk to Mark Carey, who is trapped inside an expected goals table. Hello, Mark.
Hello. How are you, JJ?
I'm good. Are you enjoying the XG table? It seems like a different room to the last one you were in.
Yeah, it's equally as colourful. I've made sure that I've added a lot of colour to this.
How come you found more rooms than Tom Warville did?
I don't know, I'm quite tall, so I can just see above things, you see.
Is it because you're better than Tom Warville?
I'm taller than Tom Warville, that is as much as I'd say.
Mark Carey is trapped inside an XG table. Mark Carey is trapped inside an XG table. An XG table is a table about expected goals and points, and Mark Carey is trapped inside it. Okay, the Premier League XG table. So this tells us about expected goals. For people who don't know what expected goals is or are, whichever that is, actually, you can tell me what all of this is, please, now.
Okay, expected goals essentially looks at the quality of chances. So it looks at all the shots, but it sort of adjusts for the quality of the shot. So we spoke about it before, but if you have a shot that's in the 6-yard box, it's more likely to result in a goal than if you take one for 40 yards.
Yes, that is true.
It's just kind of adjusting for that. So yes, we're looking at expected goals, but the main crux of it in this green column all the way over here is expected points. So we're looking at the league table. Obviously the league table is currently what it is based on the points, but based on expected goals conceded and expected goals attempted, actually adjusting for that, what would the league table actually look like if it was based on expected points?
Are you trying to confuse me with your fancy la-di-da science, or is expected points a reliable data source?
It has its pros and cons, but it's similarly built upon a statistical model, just like expected goals. And this is actually from Understat, which is another data source that is freely available for people to have a look at. But yeah, it's expected goals. It depends how much stock you place in it, I suppose. All
the stock. So I've noticed from this, I don't know what I noticed.
Well, there's a few things to take from it. So we've got the expected points in terms of, so Manchester City, if you were to base it on the quality of the chances they have created and conceded, not just scored and conceded, then they would actually be top of the league. So I think Chelsea at the time recording are top of the league, but according to expected points, Chelsea would actually be third at the moment, Manchester City first, Liverpool second.
And that makes sense, because you think Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea are probably the best teams in the league just now. I mean, they definitely are. But West Ham are fourth, and they're fourth in real life. No, they're third in real life, aren't they? At the time of recording, that could all have changed by now, obviously. But West Ham, they're actually more or less where they should be, because the expected points difference is 2.7, which is...
Yeah, and it shows that they're not there by luck. And I think if you look at them over the season, they have actually been strong at both ends this season as well. But that's kind of what's interesting in the far column, if we go all the way over here, is that difference between, because sometimes they say that the league table does kind of lie, especially early on in the season. But yes, you might get, lucky a few games, in the season. You might nick a draw, or you might be unlucky to lose, or you might be lucky to win. That we can actually look at this difference on that far end to see whether any teams are sort of above or below where they kind of should be based on the performances they've had so far.
The kind of underperformance you might notice from someone like Brentford, for example, in the big red bit.
Yeah, I think that there's been a few games, hasn't there, with Brentford, where essentially I think Brian Mbeumo's missed, well, he hasn't missed, he's hit the post about 74 times, hasn't he? He's been really unlucky at times. And Brentford have finished games quite strongly. I think a lot of the second half they've done quite well. Against Chelsea, I think they did especially well, and I think against Norwich recently, their second half performance, they were peppering the goal, so they've probably created a lot of chances and been unlucky not to get at least something out of those games.
So it looks more like they're not scoring as many as they should, but they're conceding, they're conceding more than they should as well. So basically, if they perform to the level that they should do, they get sort of averages out, they could legitimately be higher up the table than they are just now.
Yeah, and it's kind of a little bit at the moment the Brighton of last season, where there's just a little bit of discrepancy between the actual performances and what's actually the output. And I think Thomas Frank said recently, actually, in a post-match interview, which I loved, was that he was like, if you look at the expected goals, then you see that we should have won the game. So that is a victory for us data lot.
So it's not fantasy, it's real. And also, so Chelsea and Arsenal are actually overperforming just now. So they are if that corrects, they'd be lower down than they are currently. Is that right?
Yeah, ever so slightly. As I say, Chelsea are top at the moment, but based on their performances, maybe should be ever so slightly lower. And that's not to say that they aren't really dominant as a team. It's just, you look back at some specific examples. Again, we haven't got too many games to go from, but they went down to 10 men against Liverpool, and Liverpool, peppered their goal, and they did pretty well to not concede there. The Brentford game as well that we're referring to, where Brentford had some great shots, I think were indebted to Edouard Mendy for a large portion of that. So they've probably nicked a few more points than you actually would think that they have.
Okay, and the last one that I've noticed is that Norwich are exactly where they're meant to be, Newcastle are where they're meant to be, and Spurs are not only garbage, but they're also overperforming.
Yeah, I think, Norwich and Newcastle, less said there, the better.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
Sorry, guys, yeah. But yeah, Tottenham, I think they aren't very prolific in creating chances. I think that's why they've recently changed manager. They just can't really get into that final third of the pitch, because they've scored the fewest goals of a lot of teams.
And I wonder if that's sort of a disconnect between the forwards and the defence. So the midfield has been Oliver Skipp and Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, who are very much kind of ball-winning players, box-to-box players. They're not hugely creative. They're better at kind of receiving the ball close spaces. Like if you receive the ball from the defenders here, you can keep it nice and tidy. But both of them do a similar thing. Højbjerg's probably the better ball player of the two, but he's still not the guy who can ping it wide and get up to here. But then also, because you've got Lucas Moura, Son Heung-min and Kane, who keeps dropping deep to get the ball rather than staying up top. And I think that'll change under Conte, who will try and keep him further up the pitch and have these guys darting behind. You might find that these guys start dropping slightly deeper in certain phases of play to be able to help link that slightly better with this, and then they can move up this way. But Conte, obviously, as a lot of his play goes through the wing back, so they'll push up right high like this. And so what that might then bring is someone like Eric Dyer or Romero?
Romero, yeah.
Who can play a ball. Maybe that's what they're going to start looking to do, is isolate one side of the pitch, drag the opposition over here, and try and be more progressive with their passing by getting that done. And that might then help them create chances from these wide areas with isolated wingers.
Yeah, no, I do agree. We know what we're going to get with Conte as well, don't we, with the width. But yeah, there was times I was looking at something recently where Kane is sort of getting on top of Son in the areas that he's taking up. So he needs to be more central, and Tottenham needs to score more goals.
There you go, you see? Mark Carey knows his stuff. The XG table doesn't lie, also maybe it does. But the points table also does lie, and it doesn't.
That's a fairly accurate assessment, yeah. This is all a lie.
Data.
Data, we love it.
Yeah.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and Rafa Honigstein. There are journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.